Welcome to the Legionary. Water, fresh supply of it, required for any army on the march, the Romans no exception. This particular source has been in existence for several thousand years, even before the Romans. So the Romans coming through this part of France here, Burdi Galia at the time, would have relied on sources of fresh water like this to supply their army. Here I'm carrying 1 litre of water with me. You probably need 2 litres per man per day. If it's hot, during the spring or summer months, when the Roman army tended to fight most of its battles or conduct most of its campaigns, then I think they'd be closer to the 3 litres per man per day. Wearing this armour and carrying this equipment. So there you go, a source of life, and something which is critical to the effectiveness of the Roman army. Marched along waterways, or followed waterways during its campaigns, because it needed a fresh supply of water, as we previously discussed. But two, also because if the waterway was navigable by boat, then the army could move a lot faster and more efficiently. Just put my furka down. There we go. Common misconception is that the Romans would march along these super highways that they built, these stone roads, the famous Roman roads, and then would conquer their enemies and that would be it. Well, it couldn't be any further from the truth. When the Roman army arrived as an army of exploration and conquest, they would come along dirt tracks over lands and fields, such as you can see around me now. It wasn't any better than that, and you get a few thousand men, 4,000 men marching down the same track. It's going to get pretty muddy and churned up pretty soon. Really what happened, reality is that they would march along these dirt tracks, have these pitched battles with different enemies, and then afterwards, once the land was settled, then they could start building the roads. And more often than not, it was the soldiers, the pioneers, that would build the roads by hand for the occupying Roman forces. One thing they don't tell you about when you join up is that you're going to get an itchy head. Oh, it's so itchy. Terrible helmet hair. Interesting sort of point, I suppose, about grooming in the military, in the Roman military. There's another misconception is that soldiers all had shaved heads and short hair. There's nothing to actually prove that. If anything, many depictions show people with short, styled hair, but not short, not shaved short, as we do in the modern military. So, I'm sure that they had different styles that come and go. Well, we know that they did. In the later empire, the fashion became beards. They they felt that it connected them with the classical period, with the Greek period, and so therefore men started to grow beards again, and it became fashionable. A bit like modern day. Everyone's wearing a beard, even an 18-year-old, except me, because I can't grow a beard. Tracks. Problem in marching a big army, 4,000 men say, a legion, down a track like this, is very narrow. And if it's muddy, it's going to get churned up very quickly by the donkeys, by the horses, and by the men. Thousands of people travelling down one track. You can imagine what it's like. Well, look at a track like this. This would be this is about as big as a cart, wide as a cart. You can possibly get three men marching abreast on this, 3 men abreast. So it's a very narrow line. So you would then have to, that would then slow down your march, and you'd have a trail of thousands of people snaking all the way back down the road. possibly for kilometres. So again, that's another logistical challenge of moving a lot of people down a narrow track. Caligay, the Roman sandal. Empires were built on these things, hobnailed sandal. Walking through mud, doesn't matter what terrain you're on. These are absolutely the best thing ever. Walking through water is great because they self-drain. And no, I don't wear socks. I know a lot of people that do reenactment and so on and so forth wear socks. And people often talk about how socks have been found in, I believe, in places like Vindolanda and other locations. Obviously, that's in the extreme north of Europe and in countries that are a lot colder than, say, France. It's probably unlikely that they wore socks elsewhere. They're not documented until the Roman army actually arrived in what you could call the northern hemisphere of Europe. So no, I don't wear, for that reason I don't wear socks, and that way they don't get soggy either. And my Caligay are great. If you look at them, they're self-draining, and they're just great for my feet. One thing you may have gathered through watching the videos, or even the past videos, is the noise that I make when I'm marching. Obviously, moaning, that's me permanently about how heavy it is, but no, also the scabbard on my gladius hitting the base of the scutum, my shield here, and then obviously the cingulum, the dingly danglies on my on the leather straps on my apron. That makes a lot of noise also when I'm marching. So can you imagine 4,000 men all wearing this equipment marching together? The sight, if you're a tribesman on the receiving end of this, you're going to be on the receiving end of the military might of the Roman Empire. That's what you're going to see. That's the first impression you're going to get of the Romans. So you're going to be very impressed, by the sight, the sound, the smell, everything. It's going to be an overwhelming experience. Just a quick one about where we are today. This is the Escarou Lake. When I was a kid, I grew up around here. It used to be a river at the bottom of a sort of a shallow valley. Obviously they flooded it, created a man-made dam, and now it's a lake. The Romans had obviously similar engineering techniques for their military when they were on the march. If they came to a river, or they were settling by a river, they would dam the river, and so causing it to flood either side. Then they would cut channels leading from the river out into the valley bed. They would use these channels of water that ran off of the river as sort of water troughs for their horses, and also for bathing, and sure they'd use it for consumption unless they boiled it. Whether they knew that at the time is anybody's guess. But yeah, so the Romans were great at engineering and controlling the landscape. I've just discovered marching today is the fact that, just demonstrate here, if I lift my fur cap, and that's my shield is bouncing all over my back and hitting the back of my legs. Now, when I put the fur cap here on my back and draw it forward, the pack, the sarcina, as it's called, pinches the top of the shield and draws it in close to my back. Now, if you look at the bottom of the scutum of my shield, it's not beating against my legs. How cool is that? It's almost like I've discovered some new technology. It's 2,000 years old. So some people might ask why I'm doing this. There's lots of reasons why, I suppose. Obviously, sort of recreate history. But one of my chief influences, as a child, I grew up near to a place called Mildenhall in Suffolk, in England. And one day, I think over a weekend, they decided to have a Roman day, and they tried to recreate a Roman attack on an Iceni fort. Obviously the Iceni were the people of Boudica, and they brought in a load of kids from the local schools to do this over the space of a weekend. And of course, yours truly was one of the Romans, complete with cardboard armour and shield, and cardboard sword or wooden sword, I can't remember what we had, and it was all painted red, so completely historically inaccurate, but for some reason we fought. And my slave was about to fall. So yeah, we attacked the fort. We marched up in forming a square, I believe. They managed to get us into a square, and then we marched up to the fort, and then all hell broke loose as we raided it and tore it down. And a good time was had by all. But yeah, and I'd never forgotten that. It was it marked me, and I just enjoyed it, and it was so fascinating. It was the spark that it sort of ignited my interest in all things Roman, you know, thereafter. So yeah, just goes to show. Get the kids out, get them educated, get them interested in history, and who knows where they'll go. Maybe in 40 years' time they'll end up dressed as a Roman walking around some lake in France. Who knows? The hot debrief. As you may notice, I've got an addition to my helmet here, which is the horsehair crest. We don't know whether these were worn in battle or whether they were worn just for parades and so on and so forth. But anyway, I thought I'd wear it towards the end of the march to celebrate my return to the village. Yep, it was a good march all in all. 38 kilos, so full load again today. Went well, a bit tight in the upper back, but other than that, fine. The helmet's great. It's definitely heavier than the previous one, but it's a nice fit and it's very comfortable to wear. So yeah, glad I could get out today and avoid the plague, and you should do the same. Anyway, I'll see you all soon on the Legionary. Thanks for watching.